on my
Mm.
wall, and that I have to separate the problems that you might have with me versus how I'm living in my truth and be unbothered.
Yeah.
No is the full sentence, right? Like my qualifications and what I have in and of itself provide me a pathway where I'm allowed to exercise the right to make mistakes,
Mm.
to innovate, to come back to it. And so for so long, that has just been reserved for a select few, right? And so but what that really means for a woman today is not to psych herself out, right?
Mm.
Like if you're engaging and you have to decide, I use the saying, what's the look you're going for, right? And I believe in carefully curating my life. And so for me, there's not a day that I don't eat dinner with champagne or wine. Why? For what? And I'm going to drink the best of it. Like that's it, right? And I don't look. If you don't want to drink wine, don't drink wine, right? I say to people who don't want abortions, don't get one. If you don't want to marry a woman, don't do it. Like live your life for you. This is not dress
Mm.
rehearsal. And if we keep on delaying and deferring and waiting for the next person, you end up living with regrets, right? That's like you're deferring it for who? Like look at what you want and just go for it, right? And I
Mhm.
know sometimes it's not that easy, but we put self-imposed barriers in our own way. And so like freeing ourselves of that, putting the fear down and knowing like, listen, if you don't know, honey, when I tell you for sure, I could have finished like multiple degrees if Chat GPT was available back when. If Grammarly was there and I had somebody to help me to be more instructive of repeating these things, oh my God, there is no limit to what can be done. And so I'm inspired, right? I'm going to be 45 soon. And God, I'm just getting started because I do have the tools that don't tax my friends, right? Because back in the day, you say, hey, Dr. Green, can you read my paper? No, I can't read your paper because I'm reading mine. No,
Mhm.
I can't edit this because of dot, dot, dot. And now we have just such a wide open runway of information and tools that empower you to be all the things. And so for me, I can't understand for the life of any woman, particularly today, when we are the people whose vote they want the most,
Mm.
whose consumerism and dollars they want the most, whose ideas they want the most. And so once we like step back and decide, like today's the day, you cannot look back, right? And so like making the decision to say, nope, whether it's you've been struggling with your weight, you might be struggling with discipline, claim it and walk away from it, right? You've been saying, look, I'm with that so and so and he ain't blank. Examine yourself. What's the
Mm.
truth behind it, right? Are you going to be able to blink? But what I know is that even where I am tonight in life, it doesn't get any easier, right? I still have to, you have to do the thing that has to be done. And whether that's a courageous conversation, whether like my counselors, my therapists are on speed dial, right? There's a team of them who keep me together. I have to run, not because I want to lose weight, but because I need to keep this clear and I need to keep this whole. And when we decide that we're going to prioritize ourselves, life
Mm.
changes.
Yes, said a whole lot. There was a bunch of
Mhm.
words dropped in my in that right there. And I love the being your authentic self because that really came through a lot you just said. And I think as women of color, some of us struggle, whether it's the job we're in, whether it's our family, whether it's the way we were brought up about being able to actually feel comfortable in your own skin. So that is
Well,
huge. And
Dr. Green, I do want to say something because we've been having these like philosophical conversations about being your authentic self and then being your authentic self at work. Okay,
yes.
so like to be clear, there are a few people who know Atasha Monique, right? She should not go to work with me every day, right?
Yes.
Because Atasha Monique, I have to say, please God, let the ticker not be live, right? Because no, 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 no. But Atasha Monique and how I framed where I want to go in life, what I want to do with myself, what I want to do with my family, that requires a whole lot of visioning, right? And so, like, the thing about being your authentic self, in my opinion, people may see things differently. You can't be authentic if you don't know what you want.
Mm.
If you're subject to like roll with the fray, roll with whatever is current in there, in your heart of hearts, be a Renaissance woman who you could say, look, these are the kind of shoes I like. This is the kind of food I like. I like my eggs this way. Am I open to a little give and take and like adventure? Sure. But literally, like knowing yourself is what leads a person to being their authentic self. And it's crazy. You meet so many women who are like, well, I didn't know I could do that. And you're waiting for permission and you're like, are you over 18? Like, who are you waiting for? What you waiting on? And, like deciding that you can do life on your own the way that you want unapologetically, also comes with like this accountability, right? I know some women, they scared money don't make money. They don't want to jump out, and then they live a fractional, marginalized life, and it's only on them.
Right.
Step out, right? You're going to have to fall, right? In order to understand, like, oh shit, I don't want to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Or inversely, like, I'm going to do that every time. But you got to know how to operate yourself. You're the machine. Nothing works all the time except the leader. Nothing works all the time except the teacher. You are it. And so I just want to like name that. Keep your authentic self out of some spaces, but authentically be curated enough to go into those spaces is, how I try to live my life. Every now and again, things do happen, and I always apologize when they do because it almost always never ends up well.
That is good. And I love that point because Jacia and Quan and I have that authentic conversation all the time, even just the three of us. And we all work in very different industries and spaces. And so the way that you have to curate the person you are when you show up can definitely change depending on the day, on the time, on the people, all those things. So as a mother, how have you worked to instill all of these things in your children? So having them be able to walk boldly, to make difficult decisions, to have courageous conversations. How have you been able to instill that?
Oh my God. So everybody do not hang up. But so like this was the thing, right? I raised my kids to be like the rage against the machine. And what that meant for me as a mom was that like my kids didn't have electronics in the house until they were 3. Until my kids could orate, they had wooden toys. They were in the kitchen with me. We talked about everything. I didn't censor my kids. And then once my children could speak, I would go back and forth, and people would say stuff like, whoa, you raise your kids different. I do, right? My kids believed that they could fly. Like my son, he's free. I never raised my kids. People say, you need to do this so you can get a good job. No, guys, you need to be able to think so you can rule the world, right? It was my job to give them a leg up and a head start from where my parents left off. And that was the thing, right? It's like you're here to serve your community and country, right? And like your family is that nuclear place where you're pouring in your love, you're pouring in all of those things because that's first. And then from there, that's where you seed a child's confidence. We speak life or death on kids very early, right? And parents think, oh no, it's just a way. When you call your kid bad, that's not a good thing, right? When you speak so poorly around your kids about your kids, you are damning your child, right? And so for me, like my kids, they were in the kitchen. My kids are wonderful cooks. My children are brilliant writers. And guess what? They will say like, "Oh my God, true story." Like my son, he's a brilliant writer. He hasn't finished his degree, and he can write papers for money, right? He does the things. There wasn't a thing. Ashari says, "Mom, I'm really upset about this idea. Can you come join the rally with me?" Yeah, I'm taking off for work. You want to be a part of that? This is the agreement. I want you to be safe. Let's do it. I owned being my children's first teacher. Why would I go to school? I carried this baby in like a grade A uterus, breastfed that child, right? And they were the best. Why would I let any public institution that has been designed to hate, hurt, harm, trust them wholesale? That's nuts to me. Any parent who does that is, in my opinion, selling them and their family short. I would look to see what is it. Well, I knew this because I was an educator, but I would take the beginning of year report to my kids' school and say, don't mess it up. I cannot come to your events. I can't come to the back to school night. I will write you a check because this is a work hazard for me and my kid. We try to separate these things. Do the best with them. Please do your best because my kids are trained to say, your teachers have to do better. One time, this is all true stories. My son elevated, the teacher didn't write there, and there properly. I said, how can we trust them? And I said, kind of true, right? And so like, help me, right? Because if it comes to it, I'm the parent who's going to facilitate that discussion with the teacher or the principal and say,